Hey guys, hope you're good. This is Max from MHS Prod and admin of the Motion Designers community. Today we will do a really nice Houdini tutorial and we will learn how we can create this really nice effect and how we can animate it. This tutorial will be made for beginners, people that never touched Houdini or are just starting. So I will try to explain as much as possible the basis concept. So if you are a bit more advanced in Houdini, you may not learn that much stuff, but it will be really helpful if you're just starting out. So if you're new to this channel, I highly suggest to join our Facebook group called Motion Designers Community. It's like directly linked to the community, so you can share your work. Oh, this one looks pretty disgusting, but actually I loved it. You can see it. You can share your renders. You can share your animation and have like a great moment with the community. And of course, if you're beginning with Houdini, feel free to check out our free tutorials under the playlist Houdini. You have already a bunch of awesome content you can start with. So let's start in the software and see how we can create this awesome effect. Hey, let's start from scratch. So if it's the first time you use Houdini, we will modify just a bit our layout just to have something clearer if you use only one screen. And as I'm doing a tutorial, I will use only one screen. I highly suggest to use several screens, minimum two, because if you use like an external renderer like Redshift, and if you want a bigger space for your network, it's great to have several screens. On my side, I use 3 screens, but for the tutorial, I will use only one. And of course, on a laptop, you need to use only one screen. So let's move the pane center right here and alt click here. It will allow us to have bigger space for our network and nodes. So let's start by creating a grid. You can create a grid by going here and press enter if you want it in the center, but you can also directly type tab into the object network, and if you type grid, you will be able to create your grid. Today we will mostly stay into the object network and do a bit of material in the network and set our Redshift parameter into the out network. But you must know that most of the thing will happen in object network. You can also merge network if it's confusing to you to have several network panes here. You can also append a material network into your object network and for example shop network for animation. It's just a quick tip, like if you want to keep everything at the same place. So let's dive into Houdini and we can see that we have one grid. You can navigate by alt clicking, and here I'm using like the left and right click to navigate around my object, and I will decrease the number of rows and columns to have a simple surface. We want to scatter points over our grid, and for that we have a really cool node called scatter. If I connect my grid to my scatter, you can see that my grid just turned into a bunch of little points. We can do a bunch of stuff with scatter. I will not go too much over the node, but you can, for example, turn off relaxed iteration to have something more uneven, and you can do a lot of stuff. Just a quick example, if I create a UV texture for my grid, we can see my texture using the UV quick shade and see how it works. I can also click here, set view, and see the UV viewport, but that's not the topic of today. But if you have like UVs on your object, you can also, for example, generate texture in texture space, and loaded texture with alpha or black and white infos and just scatter points in a texture, and it's pretty fun. Um, so that was like just a short explanation of the scatter node and all the things you can do, just to show you that it can do much more than just scatter points over a surface. You can also scatter points inside a volume, and that's great. So now that we have our points and we want to create connections over it, and now we need to code super long and hard to understand code. No, I'm joking. We have a node for that, and it's called connect adjacent pieces. And that's the magic of Houdini. You have a bunch of built-in tools that will help you to create things. So you can create all that by yourself, and I didn't lie. You have a bunch of code, but you can open some pre-made node that will make the job for you. So just create or connect adjacent pieces node and change the connection type from adjacent points. This node is mostly used like for rigid body simulation. You can create constraints, you can define distance and all that stuff, but we will use it for MoGraph purpose today. So let's create adjacent points, and you can see that it connects points based on a shared radius. So let's have a bigger radius, and here I have a bunch of data, and it's pretty great because I want to have data for later. So let's move a bit and let's try to create a bit of depth to it, because it's all based on a grid. And let's try also to add color. So there's two ways to create some depth to it, and that's what I love in Houdini. You have like ways and ways of creating stuff. So we can just maybe try to go on the left, and let's try to extrude it. So I will extrude my object, and let's add a small distance to it. And here, if I use like a ISO offset, it will create a volume inside my object. Here, no volume, because in my poly extrude I need to output back. So now if I scatter, I will have my points scatter on my surface. And here, if I create connection, it added depth to it. So that's one way to do it. But if I want to animate it and create some stuff, I can also I will duplicate my scatter. I'm holding Alt, and you can duplicate nodes. I'm hitting Y to cut the connection, and I will create I connect it, and I will create what we called a point VOP. And a VOP is a little network where I will be able to create some operation. It's like a graphic coding. So it will be pretty simple. I will just create an add node. Let's connect the add node to a turbulent noise. So let's create a noise. Let's connect our position to our noise. Let's connect our displaced position, and let's add it to the output points. And you can see that it's already moving. Awesome, right? And here, if I'm changing like the amplitude or something, you can see that it's moving. You can also change it to 3D noise if I want something more three-dimensional, and I can get all those parameters at the upper level. So let's right click here, let's go to Vex VOP option and create input parameters. So now I will be able here to change the frequency and create some stuff into my point VOP. I can also click here and edit the parameter interface. That's the magic of Houdini. I can sort stuff. Let's create, for example, here VOP parameters. And I will not use all those parameters in this tutorial. and most of the time. So we can group them into the VOP parameters and change the folder type to collapsible. And if I click to apply, we can see that I've just changed the way the node looks, and I can rename it, for example, noise or point displacement. And I can change the color of that node by going here and set a color. So that's pretty awesome, because if you share your file with someone else or some collaborators, you can put a small note and say, for example, controls are over pink nodes, maybe, and put a color to the node. So every person like opening the setup will know where we should look, and that's awesome. So that's a second way like to displace our points. And if I duplicate my connect adjacent pieces, we can also see that I'm starting to like avoid the 2D look. So that's great. And we have way more ways to create infos. I can also create particles from that, and I can connect all the particles, and that's the magic of Houdini. I'm just making this just to explain that you can achieve an operation with so much ways. You can also use code, and you have like so much stuff going on. So let's just keep the point VOP like workflow, because we want to keep things clear. But if it's your first Houdini tutorial, I just wanted to show you that if you want to achieve something, you can think in a lot of different ways. And what I'm doing today, someone could probably do exactly the same tutorials, but with different nodes, maybe involving different stuff, maybe different ways of thinking. So that's also great. So now let's try to have a bit of color, and I can have some color from a map. There's a lot of ways to create color in Houdini. For example, I can create a color here, and I can like create a color on my points. For example, random, you can see random color here, random from bounding box, and those attributes will like transfer. It will go from my points to my connection. So that's a way to create color. But one way that we will use today is from a map. So you can use attribute from map, and it loads a texture here, but you can choose your own texture. But today we will stay with the basic texture. But if you want to load texture, just go through your texture here or select here. And the nice thing is, when the attribute, when the color is applied to the points, it will keep the color even if I'm displacing it. And that's the most awesome stuff. You can see that the points are like staying with the same color, and that's awesome. That's what I want. And the color are transferring heat and transferring, and that's awesome. You can tweak a bit things, for example, going into the attribute from map, and we have like some filters. So I think I can try to get something more like that, but you can also scale the UVs till you get something you like. So you can really create quickly awesome stuff. From gradients you can create into Photoshop and all that stuff, and it's a way to color particles or color nodes or points. And the most amazing stuff is that I will be able to use all those datas into my renderer, so I can transfer all those colors to my Redshift render. And that's the most awesome part of today. So now I want to create this veins stuff, and we want to group stuff. And grouping in Houdini is pretty awesome. you can create a group of stuff. For example, here I have a grid, and I can create a group, for example, and if I select primitive will in this case mean polygons. I can like select several polygons, let's say for example okay, and it will just like select the polygon based on their number. So for example, if I want to add this one, I can simply type the number and it's supposed to be added. Maybe it needs to be in the correct order. Oh, that's because I'm in selection mode, sorry. So let's go back into our group, and for example, let's select this. So let's type the number, and you can see I can select this one too, and I can select, for example, this one. I can also select using ranges. So to select using ranges, I can like choose to skip some polygons. There's a lot of ways to select stuff. I can also use bounding box to select stuff. You can combine the way it works. You can select points, edges, so much ways to select stuff. And the nice thing is I can use those groups to control operations. So for example, here if I'm using a poly extrude individual elements, you can see that everything is moving, but I can like use a group. And that's great because it's all procedural. If I want to change my effect, go here and say, hey, no, I don't want this one. You can remove it. I want another one. Let's say this one or this one. Oh, it actually didn't work the way I expected because it's changing. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the syntax. I guess it's because of the syntax. So yeah, you just understood the way it works. I was just making this small example to explain how grouping works. Also, the tutorial effect is I love to doing fails when I'm showing something. So you can see that I'm still failing, even if I use Houdini more and more. So let's create points over this using group range. Again, bunch of ways to group stuff in Houdini, by range, by lasso. You can combine group, so much ways, even by coding stuff. So let's create a group range into primitive, and let's select 1 points over 500, maybe over this. That's nice. I have like maybe that's great. That's more point. And I can type a small expression, for example, $OS, and this will take the name of the node name. So if I type start, the name will change. That's pretty nice thing to know if you don't want to rename everything. So let's select another group by range. Let's connect our other group by range. Let's go to points. Let's call this one end, because it will be our end group for our next node called find shortest path $OS end point, and this selected all the points over it. So I have start points, end points. And why we use the connect adjacent pieces? It's because the find shortest path I think it doesn't work directly on points if I select like start and end. If you don't use, if you want to use, for example, directly it into scatter group and it will not work. So that's why we created the connect adjacent piece in case It's just to have more data to select and use this node. So let's select start point and end point, and let's output the from any start to each end. And we start to have something. So the node is creating pretty awesome stuff, and it's pretty self-explanatory. It finds the shortest path between any start to each end. So let's try to have something more interesting. I can change, for example, here the range. So if I select that, I will have something different, and it's all, remember, it's all linked to my scatter. So if I scatter more points, it means more connection, remember. So you can really try to tweak things and just adapt till you get the things you like, and that's the magic of Houdini. So now if you are following this tutorial, I highly invite you to experiment, scatter points, maybe relax iteration, maybe change the seed. Just have fun. So now we have something pretty angular, and we want to have something pretty smooth. So we want to convert this as NURBS curve. So we'll use a node called convert, and convert can change the type of something to another thing. This is like polygons. It's kind of strange to imagine that type of data as polygons, but it's polygons. Polygon doesn't need like to be closed, so those could be also polygons. So let's select polygons, or you can select all type to NURBS curve, and you can see that we have something a bit more curvy. Play with the displacement to have something more displaced. Pretty great. And let's convert it back to polygons, because we want to do some point operation to control our scale, and it will work on polygons. So all type to polygons. That's nice. You can also create, for example, little groups in Houdini. I can select my two nodes, group them. Let's convert operation, and you can close stuff. So for example, if you have like a bunch of nodes, you can group stuff. So simple layout and organization tips. And now you can see that here I have my color, but here I've just lost my color, and that's pretty annoying. I want my color back, and for that we can use node called attribute transfer, and we'll use this node in many upcoming tutorials. And the principle is you can transfer an attribute from the past, from or another node to a node. So let's grab our connect adjacent pieces, and you can see that it just transferred the color. Here I didn't like select anything, and it's pretty unique in this case because it understands that I wanted to transfer the colors. But for example, if you want to transfer something else or be precise, you need to type that you want to transfer the color. So you need to type CD, for example. If you want to transfer point, you need to type point extra p scale. So that's pretty a unique case, that here I don't need even to type something, and it's just transfer the color. But the normal use will be to select CD, and here I have some condition of transfer, but we'll not use them. I just have my color back, and that's what I want. I'm happy today. If some concepts are abstract, the more you use them, the more you will understand them. So that's pretty easy to understand. Maybe I can try to make an example. So let's, for example, select a small grid. Here I have my grid. I want to have more rows and column, and I want to have like a color. This one could be maybe black color, and I can have like let's select our sphere. I'm trying to be like super precise so you understand everything. Let's type color and grab another color node. Let's have maybe a red color over it. And if I choose attribute transfer, I will be able to transfer my color from one object to another. And here that's too big because of the condition. But if I change the distance threshold, you can see that I have my sphere and I can blend the stuff, can like control the scale. And now if I like move my sphere, I can transfer the attributes, and I can use, for example, this color attribute to control an extrusion, to control an effect, to create a bunch of operation, basically any kind of operation, because in Houdini you can like change group, attribute, transfer any kind of attribute. You can do a bunch of things. So hope you understood what attribute transfer does here. And we want to create a p-scale because we will need a p-scale attribute to control the scale into Redshift. So let's create UV coordinates into our object. And that sounds pretty strange, but in Houdini you can create UVs along curve. So it's more U than UVs, but you can create a map over lines. So let's create a UV texture, and let's grab that here, and maybe I will use that later. Let's simply focus on that at the moment, so I can show you what's going on. Let's go to rows and columns and attribute class point. And we can visualize our attribute by using the node color. And in color, I can go to color type, run from attribute. So here it's pretty black, but let's type UV. And here we can see that I have some kind of mapping, and it's awesome. So we can also see gradient if I just use the X info. So you can see. So just to show you that we have like datas over it, you can't see here, but I have data stored, and you can have like all your attributes here, and here you have your attributes, and you can see datas. So let's use those datas to create a scale attribute. So let's create a point up again, and let's append the UV chords node, and we'll use only the U with a ramp parameter. So I will connect the U into the ramp, and I will export the ramp. So let's type bind export, and bind export will just allow me to connect this to any output that is not already written here. So by default you will have P, V, 4, CD, N, but you have also a bunch of other attributes that exist in Houdini that are not like under those attributes. So I can like bind export by myself. So I will type p-scale, and p-scale is like a universal attribute, like it's already understood by Houdini. I don't need to define it in its particle scale. Sometimes it's used to basically it will give every point scale attribute. So if I have something with a higher value to a lower value as it's mapped along the UV. So from you saw the center of my curves to the hand, I will be able to define a scale becoming from bigger to lower. It's pretty obvious when you created this several times, but if it's your first time in Houdini, I can imagine that it could be hard to understand that you can give like scale attribute to points, because you will not see the points changing of scale, but that's how it works. So also let's change that ramp type to spline ramp, and spline ramp will allow me like to create some spline ramp operation. So now let's see what it will do. We will not keep that the node, but let's see how it works, because in Redshift we have like the ability to render as strands, but here I just want to see how it looks with polywire, and here everything is like the same size. But if I use my attribute, so let's type $p_scale, and we'll see how it looks, and that's pretty what I want. I can still control that a bit by going, for example, into the point VAP. Let's select the first point and decrease the size. Maybe the latest point should be 0.001, 0.005. Yep, so I have like connection all around. And I can, of course, render that, but it will be easier in terms of polygons rather than if I directly render it using the Redshift options. So let's get rid of that. Let's grab our attribute transfer and let's transfer the connectors. Yep, that's nice. And let's see how we can render that into Redshift. Awesome, right? So let's go to Redshift. Let's click here. And if you don't have Redshift, basically, you can still see what I'm doing, because it's pretty awesome to have Redshift in Houdini, and you can like get point of comparison with Mantra or with exporting your stuff to Cinema. So I'll try to go fast. Just go to add more max samples, add global elimination, maybe brute force, irradiance span cloud, maybe a bit more brute force GI. Let's enable automatic sampling, and let's create a sky, a light dome, and under the light dome, let's load a map. So you can load any kind of HDRI map. Let's mask it from the viewport, and I think at the moment that's pretty great. So let's see how it will look right now. So let's load. I can go here and select Redshift ROP. So directly jump to here, and if I, for example, select here, you can jump here. So that's a great way to navigate, to use the tree view here when you jump to your parameters. And let's go to Redshift ROP, open render view, and just let's see how it looks now without anything. It doesn't look like nothing. You know why? Because I need to make some tweaks. First of all, I will look through my camera and tie the view to my camera, because Redshift is linked to this camera 1. Let's select like a composition, and let's go to our object. This is our strands, and let's go to Redshift object, strands, and let's click render object as strands. And here you can see in the p-scale attribute, but by default it's not inhering it. So you can see that in my Redshift view, when I will hit the render, it will be taking care of that. So this is one of the best way to render strand, but it's not super nice. I can use cylinder, for example, and if I reload, you will see that I will have something cleaner in terms of geo. But sometimes it could be like easier to calculate. So just try to select the one looks the best for you. In my case, I think keep the strip, and I can make some modification. So let's change a bit the global scale modifier, and I have my stuff. So now also I want to get rid of the background, and I want to get my colors in my Redshift render. So how we can do that? We'll create a material. So let's go to the mat. Let's create a RS material builder and rename that Strands. Let's jump into it. Let's create a material. Let's connect it. And I want to get my diffuse color as my CD attribute. So let's type RS point attribute. And I will be able to type any point attribute to get the data from. So let's type CD. CD means color in Houdini. I think it's color diffuse or something like that, but all the color attributes in Houdini are CD. So let's connect color into diffuse color. Let's go back to our strands, go to render, and here in material, let's select our material strands. Now suspense and see if it works. Yes, pretty happy with that. The material have some reflection, but it's directly linked to the material, so I can like tweak stuff here. For example, I can like change the IOR, and you can see that it changed stuff. So it's just up to you to create the kind of render you want. You have like a bunch of options here. Let's see what we can do in the camera too, because the camera is pretty awesome. Let's go here and let's go to view. I can like change the camera parameters, and in Redshift camera I can set a depth of field. That's awesome. I love like depth of field is just so awesome. So do I have like depth of field? Yep. And I can select it with the click to focus. So I can like choose focus and just change, for example, the radius or something like that. You can play with photographic exposure. You have a bunch of little parameters to match your stuff. You can create a bunch of little things if I want to get more bluish mode to it. And of course the post effects, I can load some LUTs. I can enable the color controls, and of course that's all the stuff you can do in Nuke or After Effects, but it's quite nice sometimes to just use the classic stuff from the renderer till you get something you like, and that's quite fun. You can see I'm just tweaking just a little bit the stuff till I get something I like, and yep, bunch of stuff that I can apply. So now you just need like to animate and render that. I think we'll not cover the render today in the animation, but if you want to render, just let's go to Redshift, ROP. You have an output, and this just mean render all the frames, add a number starting from 0 to the number of the frame, and give like the name, and render it where you saved your file in AXR. So if you want to save, just maybe go to PNG, change the end into PNG. That's something you need to know in Houdini. Even like if you export something in ABC, you need to type the name and type by yourself the .abc. So here, name, here you have your AOVs, so you can add some data if you like. So pretty easy to render. Like that's what I do when I render. I'm not changing the path. I'm just like saving my file when I want to create the render, and it will create for me folder create render. So I can also change the name, and it will create at the base of the project folder create render 2. It will keep the name of the file to render the project, and then add digits to it till it's going over and over. So pretty awesome. And then you need to go render by frame range, select your frame range, and just click render to disk. Pretty easy, but I will not make it today because I will not render the animation. Sometimes you need to keep color and LUT control. Sometimes you need to check and correct gamma. But that's more Redshift based than Houdini based, and it's not like a Redshift tutorial, it's Houdini tutorial. Latest thing we can do is what I promised in the beginning, is to create a small animation to it, because we love animation. We are motion designers, and we want to animate that. So how I can animate that? Remember, we pushed our points using a point VOP, and we'll use again a point VOP just to create some movement on the lines. So let's create again a point VOP. Let's connect the point VOP, let's jump into it, and we will again display the point position, but as all the points are like connected as some curves, it will move the curve. So that's great. So let's choose the curl noise. Let's select add, and remember we add original position to the displaced position, and poof, that's the best effect I ever made. I will 3D print that and call museums, and starts to be really famous and rich. So okay, let's just decrease the amplitude, and whoa, you can really feel what's going on here. I can feel that, and I love that. So maybe sparse convolution noise, and let's promote the offset. So I can middle click here and go to promote parameter. And if you are like in Mac, because I know I have some students that are on the Mac with a laptop, so just go to VexWrap option and create input parameters for everything. And now let's animate the offset. I can animate it with keyframes, so by alt clicking here, going later and add keyframes and create keyframes. But I love expression, and I will create reference. So let's go here, let's type $f, it means $frame. So you can see what it does. Frame 1 will be equal to 1, frame 100 will be equal to 100. So it's animating my offset pretty fast. I will just divide that by 200, and you can see it's animating slowly the offset. But I want also to animate it here and here in y and z. So I can like right click, copy parameter, paste relative reference, and paste relative reference, and it will be, this parameter will be linked to this one, and whoo, it's animated. My effect is still ugly because we got again the angular look. So remember what we've done by the past. Let's create a convert, and we go from polygons to NURBS scale. Ooh, that's more sexy. And again, I can go to convert. I was like the guy, hey, I'm typing super fast, but didn't create something. So okay, it's smoother and it's animated. So it's a bit slow because I'm dealing with a lot of data, but you can create close-up for your title design and more graphs and all that stuff. And you can also see how it looks by clicking here, render to flipbook. And if I click to start, I can have like really fast render to see how it will be animated, so I can like then see real time how it looks. So that's a way to previs your stuff. So hope this tutorial was helpful. Hope you guys learned a lot of stuff. Hope it was clear enough for beginner. If it wasn't, I highly suggest to watch our other tutorials. Maybe start with more simple ones, beautiful pattern using loops, or gross effect using VDB and solver. Actually, this one is pretty easy. The name looks complicated. So yeah, you'll learn more stuff. And of course, if you're starting, we have a Patreon with a bunch of tutorials, hours and hours, for a super cheap price, to learn how you can use Houdini, how you can go from Houdini to cinema, all the super basic stuff to generate nice shapes, and how you can animate it. So like if you're really starting, I think it could be a nice place to go to our Patreon first and see the stuff you can do, because I use Houdini here really in combination with cinema, and then over time all the tutorials just explain more and more stuff, more complicated concepts to create fun things. So yeah, just feel free to check our Patreon, and actually it's pretty low price for what it is. You can I think I need to log out. You can actually join if you're quick enough to $9, and with all the content you got here, the hours and hours, this could be sold, and this is actually sold by some guys, €100 for a full course over Houdini. So here you just pay once, you support the creators of the tutorials, and you get access to all the new content. So it will be awesome if you want to learn deeper Houdini. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please, if you have renders and result from the tutorial, please post it in the Facebook group. I'm super excited to see what you guys made, and of course follow MHS Prod and Motion Designers community. See you guys.